Ding Qi convulsed on the ground. His neck, that had been bitten off by the floating lights, was bleeding like flowing water. He opened his eyes widely and saw a snow-white figure coming slowly towards him from the radiance of the floating lights. The man held a sword condensed by invisible wind in his right hand. Fear gradually showed up in Ding Qi's eyes. He looked at the man in white and the sword. With blood in his mouth, he vaguely spat out a few words, you are. Before he had the chance to finish, Feng Lian gently waved his sword and cut off Ding Qi's body from the waist. The sword in his hand disappeared into a gust of wind. Feng Lian looked at the corpse indifferently. A cold, bloody expression showed on his gorgeous face. Finished. The impatient, clear voice of Huang Beiyu came from behind. The coldness on Feng Lian's face immediately melted away. A soft, gentle and smiling light appeared in his ice-purple eyes. Don't come here. You will feel uncomfortable by seeing it. Feng Lian said. He turned around and walked to Huang Beiyu with a smile. Seeing Huang Beiyu's lovely cold face, he smiled widely and apologized, sorry to have kept you waiting. Huang Beiyu snorted. She turned a blind eye to his deliberate care and flattery, and walked away. A while after they had left, the surrounding floating lights soon ate up the ugly pile of blood and meat. Therefore, they turned towards Ding Qi, who was cut into two. When the glittering floating lights moved toward Ding Qi, a dark vitality suddenly hit them. The floating lights all turned into ashes immediately. A black figure came quietly to Ding Qi. It looked young like a teenager, wearing a very delicate black cloak. The cloak didn't cover his face, which was gloomy, strange and a bit unnaturally pale. If it were not for the weird paleness, it must be a handsome face. His eyes were big, deep and dark, which was a little frightening. If you look carefully, you would find that the pupils were static. That is to say, he couldn't see anything. Although he was blind, his actions were not messy. He squatted down beside Ding Qi, took his pale hand out of the cloak and put it above Ding Qi's head. He opened his mouth slightly. His voice was as a cold spring, without any fluctuation. He said in a strange and quiet way, body grows, spirit gathers, soul comes back. Ding Qi, who had already died, suddenly turned his eyeballs. His mouth was bleeding. He was alive again, but the great pain of being cut off into two parts made him scream painfully. His internal organs and blood flew out of his body, which was horrible and disgusting. Ding Qi slowly lifted up his wandering eyes. He saw the weird black figure in front of him and a light flashed in his eyes. Ding Qi said, Mo, prestigious Mo Lian, who did this? The black figure asked coldly. Xiu Luo City and, red hair. Prestigious Hong Lian, Ding Qi said painfully and begged, save me. Painful? Mo Lian's pale eyes turned slightly. Painful, Ding Qi cried bitterly. He had been split into two by Feng Lian's sword. He died but it didn't hurt so much. Now he was revived by Mo Lian's spiritualism. The fact that his body was incomplete was incredibly painful. Mo Lian slightly tilted his head. A strange and cruel smile gradually showed up in his pale face. He said, if you are painful, then die. He lifted his hand gently. Countless floating lights suddenly rushed down to Ding Qi's body. Ding Qi screamed but was instantly gnawed off even the bones. Mo Lian stood up, pulled the cloak, and turned his head. He seemed to look at the deep in the forest. Below his left eye, there was a black platycodon tattoo, which was very strange on the pale face. Red hair, Hong Lian. Beiyu Royal Kingdom. Huang Beiyu, who had already reached the edge of the floating forest, suddenly stopped. A hint of ominous feeling welled in her heart. Feng Lian took a quick step and looked back at her. He asked, what's wrong? Those people. Have you killed them all? Huang Beiyu squinted slightly. Feng Lian smiled and said, you don't believe me? You'd better kill them all. Huang Beiyu glanced at him and strode forward. As they approached the camp of Lingyang College, suddenly they heard sounds coming from ahead. Let's do it here. Hee. No one will come here. It's safe. Hee, okay, just here. We are pretty lucky. This chick is really a beauty. Hee. A few wretched laughters came forward. It was from the mercenaries of the Four Seas mercenary group. From their voice, it could tell that they were doing something evil and it must be related to Lingyang College. Although Huang Beiyu was indifferent even if Lingyang College was destroyed because it had nothing to do with her, she hated those people of the Four Seas mercenary group. They can do evil, but it's unlucky if they do evil in front of her, Huang Beiyu thought. Her eyes were getting colder and colder. She held the pure gold spirit tiger tightly and was about to go over. At this time, a woman's scream came from among the mercenaries. "What are you doing? Go away. You dirty rubbish. Go away. Do you know who I am?" The woman cried. The shrill voice sounded familiar. Huang Beiyu stunned and stopped. Feng Lianyi wanted to keep up but was stopped by her. The wretched mercenaries smiled and said, "Little beauty, don't be afraid. We will make you comfortable. You will like it. Hee, that's right. Believe in our skills. Hee, come on, give me a kiss tilde piss off." The woman screamed in anger. Obviously she wanted to run away, but was pulled by several people. How dare you? We have seen so many women like you. Even though now you refuse, later you will beg us to fuck you. A man said. "Heavenly Snow Cat, come out." The woman shouted. The snow-white heavenly snow cat showed up in the forest. It roared and stared at these people fiercely. "Oh, we didn't expect you are a summoner. Ah, I like female summoners best. She's a 3-star summoner. Ah, great. Yes, I'm a summoner. So you'd better piss off right now. Or I will beat the shit out of you," said the woman. Seeing the heavenly snow cat, Huang Beiyu didn't doubt anymore. The woman caught was Xiao Yun. Feng Lianyi looked at her and whispered, "It seems that the person is from the mansion of eldest princess." "Yes. It's my second elder sister." Huang Beiyu licked her lips and said. She retreated to the forest and squatted with the pure gold spirit tiger in hug. "Yes. It's my second elder sister." Huang Beiyu licked her lips and said. She retreated to the forest and squatted with the pure gold spirit tiger in hug. Then she waved to Feng Lianyi and said, "Come here. Won't you help her?" Feng Lianyi went over, squatted beside her and asked. Through the dense plant leaves, he could see the huge heavenly snow cat over there. Huang Beiyu raised her eyebrows and said, "My sister is a 3-star summoner. She is so powerful that she won't need my help." Her words were full of sarcasm. Feng Lianyi looked at her and thought, what on earth did she suffer at home that makes her so indifferent to kinship? Meow, the heavenly snow cat suddenly screamed bitterly. It flew backward and fell to the ground heavily. Where he had been standing, there was a patterned thunder attribute spotted leopard squatting down with dignity. Thunder attribute spotted leopard, a level 10 spiritual beast. Xiao Yun's face went pale. She retreated step by step and said, "You, don't act recklessly. Do you know who I am? My father is Xiao Yuan Cheng, husband of the eldest princess." Husband of the eldest princess? You are the daughter of eldest princess Hui Wen, Princess Beiyu, asked by a mercenary. Xiao Yun didn't know what happened so she dared not answer hastily. She stunned and the mercenary continued maliciously, "My eldest brother died distressingly because of eldest princess Hui Wen, which I haven't revenge for. Now her daughter is in my hand. What a retribution." Hearing this, Xiao Yun was afraid. But she was also glad for not having pretended to be Princess Beiyu. She had thought eldest Princess Hui Wen was beloved and supported by the people, having no enemies at all. Now, it seemed not exactly so. I ain't the daughter of eldest Princess Hui Wen. How could my mother be such a shameless bitch? It was her that took my father away and made my mother the little concubine, I the Shu daughter. I hate her." Xiao Yun said hurriedly. The mercenary said coldly, "You want to cheat me? I'm not a fool. It's true. I'm not Princess Beiyu. Princess Beiyu also came with us this time. If you want to take revenge, I can lead you to her." Xiao Yun said hurriedly. As long as she could survive, she could do anything. "Oh, Princess Beiyu also comes?" the mercenary said. He touched his chin and began to think about it. People surrounded said, "Hualaro Liu, what's wrong with you? We caught this chick for nothing." Are you leaving her alone? How could that be? Oriole laughed wretchedly and said, Chick, how is Princess Bayu like? Is she as beautiful as you are? Yes. She is much more beautiful than I am. At this moment, Xiao Yun completely abandoned her sense of superiority to Huang Beiyu. She exerted all her compliments on describing Huang Beiyu. Everyone in Linhuai City knows that Princess Beiyu looks exactly the same as eldest Princess Hui Wen. Eldest Princess Hui Wen was a top beauty in Cart Continent when she was young. How could Princess Beiyu be worse? Hearing these words, Oriole said to his men in a lewd way, So, do you want to enjoy the taste of that noble princess? These mercenaries were born to act outrageously and ferociously, having no sense of rules or laws. On hearing that there was an even prettier woman, they couldn't help but itch for actions. Oriole, even though there is a prettier Princess Beiyu, we can't let this chick go. Princess Beiyu should be no more than 12 or 13 years old. How could she be sexier than this stunner? A mercenary walked to the side of Oriole and said in a low voice. Oriole answered with a sinister smile, Sure. I won't let this chick go. After we catch Princess Beiyu, we can enjoy them together. Then Oriole raised his head and said, You said you can lead us to Princess Beiyu. Why should we believe you? Xiao Yun answered viciously, I won't cheat you. I hate that girl too. She robbed everything that should be mine. To be honest, eldest Princess Hui Wen died because my mother poisoned her medicine. I also wish Huang Beiyu could die sooner. TSK. I see. Little beauty, both you and your mother are devils, but I like it. Oriole said and pinched the white soft cheek of Xiao Yun with a sinister smile. Xiao Yun forced herself to smile. Hearing their conversation, Huang Beiyu, hidden not far away, broke a branch with anger. A cold look immediately showed up in her eyes. Xiao Yun, you are risking your neck. Who is there? The noise she made was heard by those alerted mercenaries right away. These people were summoners and Budo masters, all were superior members of 4C's mercenary group. Oriole gave them a glance. 2 mercenaries immediately walked to the forest. They found us. Let's go. Feng Lian tapped her on the shoulder. But Huang Beiyu suddenly stood up. She put the baby pure gold spirit tiger into the arms of Feng Lian and strode out. Second sis. We just separated for a short while, why did you come here? Huang Beiyu said coldly. She glanced at those mercenaries indifferently. A group of scumbags. Xiao Yun was stunned on seeing her. She thought quickly in her mind that Huang Beiyu was a mere golden warrior level summoner. What could she do facing these mercenaries? Now that Huang Beiyu was useless, she could only push Huang Beiyu into the fire. Even if she were to die, she would drag Huang Beiyu down to hell. It is her. She is Princess Beiyu. Xiao Yun pointed at her and shouted to Oriole. Oriole was a bear-like tall strong man. The level 10 thunder attribute Spotted Leopard appeared just now was his summoner beast. You are indeed a stunning beauty. Oriole looked at Huang Beiyu up and down. There was an undisguised sleaze and lust in his sights. Pah! With the huge sound, Oriole flew backward and hit on the tree behind immediately. His tall strong body even broke the branch from the middle. You can imagine how great the pain Oriole suffered. Oyu falling from the tree, Oriole immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His summoning beast, the spotted leopard, seeing her master being beaten so heavily, went furious at once. She roared at Huang Beiyu and was about to attack her. Howl! The baby beast roared at a low voice, weak and soft, like a baby murmuring after waking up. The spotted leopard which was about to attack Huang Beiyu was stunned on hearing the roar. Then she retreated quickly. Retreated, and retreated. The spotted leopard who was about to attack Huang Beiyu was stunned upon hearing the voice. Then she retreated quickly. Retreated, and retreated. At last, she even retreated to the side of Oriole, cowering and shivering. Not long after, she ran into the spiritual beast space to hide. The baby pure gold spirit tiger was awake. No wonder the spotted leopard was frightened to death. In front of a mythological beast, what could a minor level 10 spiritual beast do? Although its appearance could be hidden, the breath of a mythological beast was difficult to hide. Now that the pure gold spirit tiger had woken up, she'd better teach him how to pretend to be an ordinary tiger and not to threaten humans and spiritual beasts with the breath of mythological beasts casually. Feng Lian walked out with the pure gold spirit tiger in arms. He stared at the injured Oriole coldly. His white clothes were still waving. Obviously, he used vitality just now. Those mercenaries were frightened by Oriole's injury. After all, Oriole was the most powerful one among them but was beaten such seriously by a single blow. How could they survive? Besides, though they didn't know the man in white, he seemed really powerful. Was the baby tiger in his arms his summoner beast? The mercenaries all retreated to the side of Oriole. One said, Oriole, that the man is not ordinary. We'd better run away. Run away? Before Oriole responded, Huang Beiyu had said with a cold smile, do you think you can run away from me? Those mercenaries were not afraid of Huang Beiyu because they didn't see her attack. One said with disdain, we people of 4C's mercenary group are all masters. Our boss Yuan is not an easy man. That big beard man dared insult our Nanyi country. Sooner or later, I will kill him, but before that, I will kill you. Huang Beiyu said. Then she turned to Feng Lian and said, stay out of this. I see. Feng Lian said with a smile. The coldness on his face was melted away. He attacked because of Oriole's unbridled sights on her, which made him unhappy. This little girl was highly self-esteemed and conceited. Therefore, when she was giving other people a lesson, he would definitely not disturb, in case it might make her angry again. These mercenaries scorned to her words and one said, a little girl like you. Before the mercenary finished his words, Huang Beiyu had come to him and punched him without mercy. The mercenary immediately flew away, with teeth and bloods beaten out. Huang Beiyu glanced at these stunned mercenaries coldly. Suddenly, a white ice feather appeared in her hand. Before these mercenaries realized what had happened, the ice feather had swept past. Immediately, several bitter screams raised one after another. All these mercenaries, including the heavily injured Oriole, were blown away because of the sweep. Damn! This girl is too powerful. Those mercenaries struggled up from the ground and began to summon their summoning beasts at once. However, with a mythological beast, the pure gold spirit tiger here, no spiritual beast dared to come out. The summoners were all surprised and frightened. The other Budo masters didn't need to summon spiritual beasts. So they showed their weapons directly and were about to fight with Huang Beiyu. Huang Beiyu laughed and snorted, throwing an egg against a rock. You guys overestimate yourselves. 3 Budo masters rushed forward together. But Huang Beiyu just stood there stilly. The corner of her mouth was slightly lifted, showing a faint cold smile. Xiao Yun, who stood behind the crowd, suddenly screamed loudly and kneeled down because of cold feet. Those Budo masters were all stunned. Before they could realize what had happened, the summoners behind them had been crying, Ice Spirit Bird. The Ice Spirit Bird of the 5 spiritual beast. Help. She is a summoner of no less than 9 stars. These summoners all scrambled backward to escape. Pitifully, those Budo masters who had rushed forward bravely were swallowed to the belly by the Ice Spirit Bird before they could make it to turn back and see the legendary ice attribute Ice Spirit Bird of the 5 spirit beasts. Don't let anyone leave. Huang Beiyu ordered calmly. Yes, Master, the Ice Spirit Bird answered. She just ate a few people as an appetizer and wanted more. She flapped the ice wings and chased up to those fleeing summoners. It was like they were playing the chasing game of cat and mouse. Not until the summoners were desperate to commit suicide, did the Ice Spirit Bird swallow them one by one. Since when did the Ice Spirit Bird become so naughty? Huang Beiyu watched for a while, then turned around and went to Xiao Yun. Xiao Yun had been so frightened that she couldn't support herself standing. She kneeled on the ground and saw Huang Beiyu coming. She felt it hard to breathe and her heart was about to leap out of her mouth in fear. Third sis. I said so just as an expediency. Xiao Yun saw the ice feather in Huang Beiyu's hand. She felt helpless and desperate. By now, if she hadn't understood what had happened, she would have been a real fool. Huang Beiyu is not useless nor Golden Warrior level. Instead, she is. She is the 9-star summoner with the ice spirit bird Shi Tian. No wonder. Mother had hoped Shi Tian could accept her daughter as a disciple, so she had asked people of Mercenary Union to hand over many valuable gifts to Master Shi Tian. No wonder those gifts were all returned as they were, every time. They used to think that it was because masters like Shi Tian were all arrogant. So it was nothing even though she refused those gifts and declined to accept her as a disciple. But now, she understood. How funny she and her mother had been. They had gone for a loser who they had never looked up. Huang Beiyu must have been laughing at them. Not only laughing at them, she also had set all kinds of traps and tricks, and framed them up. Thinking of these, Xiao Yun couldn't help but gnash her teeth with hatred. However, thinking of the fact that Huang Beiyu was Shi Tian, she also felt horrible. As an expediency, Huang Beiyu stood in front of Xiao Yun and looked down at her. She said lightly, "If I hadn't heard the expediency of second sis today, I'm afraid that I would never know my second sis hates me so much." "No, I'm not." Xiao Yun hurriedly shook her head and explained. "You and I are sisters with the same blood. How could I hate you? Forget all those words. But I have heard it and can never forget it. Especially the words that my mother died because of the poison sent by concubine Shui. No." Xiao Yun screamed. She kneeled forward despite the cold feet and said, "Third sis, it's not true. No matter how bold I and my mother are, we don't dare to murder the royals." Huang Beiyu turned her head down and a deep disgust showed up in her cold eyes. She said, "Xiao Yun, pick up your backbone. I really despise you for that." Xiao Yun was stunned. She cried with tears, I didn't. Huang Beiyu kicked Xiao Yun away. Then she squatted down and looked at her coldly and said, "Second sis, do you know why you could win that ice feather from the ice spirit bird in that auction? Because a summoner can know all the places and actions of the past from her or his summoning spiritual beast. Do you think you can deceive me about all the things you and concubine Shui have done?" Xiao Yun was frozen from head to toe. She thought of the auction. No wonder there was a 9-star summoner auctioning the feather of her spiritual beast. Everything was intentionally planned. Huang Beiyu dug a pit for her. She gave the ice feather to her intentionally, making Xiao Yun think that she was more powerful. But in actuality, Huang Beiyu was keeping watch on her. "Huang Beiyu, you are so vicious," whispered Xiao Yun. "Sure. Or how can I fight against you?" Huang Beiyu smiled slightly and said, "Anyway, you and concubine Shui did take a lot of time to fight against. I enjoyed that. But now, don't blame me for my revenge. You know me, I'm ruthless and merciless, and I'll return 10 times of my sufferings onto my enemies." What do you want to do? Aren't you afraid that people will know you are such a vicious person?" Xiao Yun said while she retreated step by step. Finally, she turned to Feng Liani for help. The 9th prince of Bei Yarrow country was said to be the most kind and gentle man in the world. He wouldn't fold his hands and see her die. As long as he could offer a little help, she would survive. Pitifully, how could Xiao Yun know that behind the gentle appearance of Feng Liani, it was a heart colder than anyone's? He touched the soft fur on the head of the baby pure gold spirit tiger tenderly. With a warm smile hanging on his face, Feng Liani looked at them as if watching a play of deep sisterhood. "Prince Yi." "Prince," Xiao Yun was begging. Huang Beiyu went forward, grabbed her collar and said fiercely, "You can only blame your bad luck. I know you were caught here by those people to humiliate. Now that they failed, I will do it in another way. Do you know what is living worse than death?" Xiao Yun shook her head and cried bitterly, "I don't know, you don't know? Good. You will know it very soon." Huang Beiyu smiled coldly. She turned to the ice spirit bird and asked, "Where is the spotted leopard?" All those mercenaries had been eaten except for Huolaro Liu. His spiritual beast, the spotted leopard, was still hiding in the spiritual beast space. The ice spirit bird went to the side of Huolaro Liu. She dragged over the frightened and dying man and pulled out the spotted leopard from the spiritual beast space. Facing the ice spirit bird, The level 10 spiritual beast was like a small shrimp. She cowered on the ground and trembled with fear. Huang Beiyu threw Xiao Yun to them and said with a smile, "Tell her to send my second sis to the Four Seas mercenary group across the river. Just call it a big gift from Oriole." "No." Xiao Yun cried bitterly. She rushed over to pull the legs of Huang Beiyu and begged, "Third sis, I know my fault. I know my mother's fault. Please, forgive me. I won't dare do it again. Second sis, stop begging me. Even though you break your head, I will never forgive you. Do you think I didn't know about your murder of my mother until today? I knew about it long ago. The reason why I didn't do anything to you was that I was thinking about how on earth I can make you live worse than death." Xiao Yun opened her frightened eyes widely. She now knew begging was useless. Suddenly, a cold cruel light flashed through her eyes and the ice feather suddenly appeared in her hand. She shouted, "Now that you are heartless, I will also be ruthless. You go to hell." Huang Beiyu kicked Xiao Yun away. Then she squatted down to look at her coldly and said, "Second sis, do you know why you could win that ice feather of the ice spirit bird in that auction? Because the summoner can know all the places and actions of the part from her or his summoning spiritual beast. Do you think you can deceive me about all the things you and concubine Shui have done?" Xiao Yun was frozen from head to foot. She thought of the auction. No wonder there was a 9-star summoner auctioning the feather of her spiritual beast. Everything was intentionally planned. Huang Beiyu dug a pit for her. She gave the ice feather to her intentionally, making Xiao Yun thought that she was more powerful. But actually, Huang Beiyu was to watch her. "Huang Beiyu, you are vicious," whispered Xiao Yun. "Sure. Or how can I fight against you?" Huang Beiyu smiled slightly and said, "Anyway, you and concubine Shui did make me take time to fight against. I enjoyed that. But now, don't blame me on my revenge. You know me, I'm ruthless and merciless, and I'll return 10 times of my sufferings to my enemies." What do you want to do? Aren't you afraid that people will know you are such vicious?" Xiao Yun said while she retreated step by step. Finally, she turned to Feng Liani for help. The 9th prince of Bei Yarrow country was said to be the most kind and gentle man in the world. He wouldn't fold his hands and see her die. As long as he could offer a little help, she would survive. Pitifully, how could Xiao Yun know that behind the gentle appearance of Feng Liani, it was a heart colder than anyone? He touched the soft fur on the head of the baby pure gold spirit tiger tenderly. With a warm smile hanging on his face, Feng Liani looked at them as if watching a play of deep sisterhood. "Prince Yi." "Prince," Xiao Yun was begging. Huang Beiyu went forward, grabbed her collar and said fiercely, "You can only blame your bad luck. I know you were caught here by those people to humiliate. Now that they failed, I will do it in another way. Do you know what is living worse than death?" Xiao Yun shook her head and cried bitterly, "I don't know, you don't know? Good. You will know it very soon." Huang Beiyu smiled coldly. She turned to the ice spirit bird and asked, "Where is the spotted leopard?" All those mercenaries had been eaten except for Oriole. His spiritual beast, the spotted leopard, was still hiding in the spiritual beast space. The ice spirit bird went to the side of Oriole. She dragged over the frightened and dying man and pulled out the spotted leopard from the spiritual beast space. Facing the ice spirit bird, the level 10 spiritual beast was like a small shrimp. She cowered on the ground and trembled with fear. Huang Beiyu threw Xiao Yun to them and said with a smile, "Tell her to send my second sis to the Four Seas mercenary group across the river. Just call it a big gift from Oriole." "No." Xiao Yun cried bitterly. She rushed over to pull the legs of Huang Beiyu and begged, "Third sis, I know my fault. I know my mother's fault. Please, forgive me. I won't dare do it again. Second sis, stop begging me. Even though you break your head, I will never forgive you. Do you think I didn't know about your murder of my mother until today? I knew that long ago. The reason why I didn't do anything to you was that I was thinking about how on earth can I make you live worse than death." Xiao Yun stared her frightened eyes widely. She now knew begging was useless. Suddenly, a cold cruel light flashed through her eyes and the ice feather suddenly appeared in her hand. She shouted, "Now that you are heartless, I will also be ruthless. You go to hell. After the words, Xiao Yun condensed a handful of blizzard with all her ice vitality. She quickly pushed it towards Huang Beiyu. Obviously, she had prepared it for a long time, or it couldn't be this fast. When a 3-star summoner uses all her ice vitality to perish together, the power of the attack must be huge. Huang Beiyu frowned slightly and thought, she is totally the same as concubine Shui when it comes to refusing to give up until all hope is gone. Truly troublesome woman. A crazy light glittered in Xiao Yun's eyes. It would be better to die with Huang Beiyu here than to be thrown to the Four Seas mercenary group while being humiliated to death. The blizzard had already been pushed towards Huang Beiyu's back. Xiao Yun shouted at a low voice, "Break!" Yet before she could finish uttering a word, the person who was tightly grasped in her hand had suddenly disappeared from sight. Xiao Yun was stunned, yet the blizzard suddenly exploded. She screamed and flew backward, falling heavily on the ground. She managed to support herself up, but she still spat out some blood. Xiao Yun raised her head and saw Huang Beiyu standing where she had just stood. Xiao Yun spat out more blood. She couldn't believe it. Why was Huang Beiyu not injured at all? While she not only drained all her vitality, but also damaged her dantian. It would be extremely hard for her to condense vitality in the future. In Budo, there is a special martial method named Mobiliarbus, I call it teleport, which can only be learned by cultivators above Blademaster level. Second sis, you are too weak to kill me, mocked Huang Beiyu. Xiao Yun cried out, no. Why are you better than me at everything? Why? I've worked so hard for the past 10-odd years, but still, I can't do as well as you. Why? No reason. Just as concubine Shui said, don't blame me. If you have to blame anyone, then blame yourself for your bad fate. Huang Beiyu said mockingly. She didn't say more but waved to the ice spirit bird and handed Xiao Yun to her. Then she turned around and walked to Feng Liani to pick the pure gold spirit tiger over. Huang Beiyu, you will receive your retribution. You must have your retribution. I'll curse you. Curse you. The shriek of Xiao Yun became more and more distant. Huang Beiyu slightly raised her lips. Retribution? If there was a retribution, Xiao Yun and concubine Shui should most definitely receive it before her. Even though she had severely punished Xiao Yun, Huang Beiyu didn't know why, but she felt extremely heavy-hearted. She felt it was unfair for the eldest princess and for the previous Huang Beiyu. Why were they plotted against by such people? Especially the eldest princess. What an unparalleled and unsurpassed beauty. Pitifully, she was killed by the poison of a rat. The pure gold spirit tiger who had just woken up was looking at her curiously. His big black eyes were on her and his body was snuck tightly into her arms. It seemed that he really liked her. Yet Huang Beiyu didn't like being too close to other people or animals. Although the baby beast was cute, she pulled him out from her arms. The baby pure gold spirit tiger moaned discontentedly and turned to look at Feng Liani pitifully, as if he was complaining. Feng Liani glanced at Huang Beiyu. He felt a little distressed seeing her frosty complexion. He knew that she had just dealt with her own sister, and that she had learned the secret of her mother's death. She must feel bad. In big families, a lot of things were sad and helpless. He patted the head of the baby pure gold spirit tiger and said with a smile, don't be naughty. She is in a bad mood. The baby pure gold spirit tiger tilted his little head. The baby pure gold spirit tiger tilted his little head and thought about the words. Then he turned to Huang Beiyu and licked her hand. Finally, he no longer moved but lied in her arms quietly. Huang Beiyu held the pure gold spirit tiger and said nothing. But there was a trace of gloom in her slightly pursed lips. A light flashed through the eyes of Feng Liani. After a brief silence, Feng Liani patted her shoulder and said softly, I know you are strong. But if you are sad, don't hold it in your heart. Huang Beiyu startled for a moment. Then she looked up at him. Nothing changed in her dark and indifferent eyes, but the sense of alienation became a little lighter. Was he concerned about her? Although he said in a casual way, Huang Beiyu could tell that he was not pretending. She was arrogant, but she was not too arrogant to confuse right and wrong. Who was really good to her and who was pretending to be good to her? Usually she could tell them apart very clearly. Thanks for your concern. She slightly raised her beautiful lips and said. This was the best attitude she had ever shown to him. Feng Lianyi couldn't help laughing. A hint of doting appeared in his purple eyes unconsciously. He said, You have a beautiful smile. Why don't you smile more often? Huang Beiyue's face went cold again. Hearing the praise of a male, she didn't feel as shy as ordinary girls did, but only felt that such words seemed to go beyond the general relationship between her and him. I don't like to smile in front of people I don't like. Huang Beiyu said coldly. Seeing Feng Lianyi's frustrated expression, she felt a bit joyful for no reason. Prince Yi, do you think I'm too cruel just now? Huang Beiyu asked. All I know is that what she did before must be more than that. So you hate her? Feng Lianyi said with a faint smile. Cruel? He didn't feel it cruel at all. If it had been him and someone had killed his mother, he would have broken him to pieces. Don't even think of peace for his children or grandchildren. Huang Beiyu had no expression on her face, but she was a little relieved. However, she immediately reminded herself that Feng Lianyi was from Xiaoluo City, a merciless and cold-blooded place. Naturally, Feng Lianyi could never be a kind-hearted person. The baby beast will become attached to the first person who he contacts with. Obviously, he likes you very much. Feng Lianyi didn't want to let her continue to be sad about Xiao Yun's issue, so he started a new topic. Huang Beiyu looked at the baby pure gold spirit tiger. Her complexion became a little softer. This little guy was really lovable and sensible. This is called nestling complex, which means he will take the first person he sees on opening his eyes as his parent. Huang Beiyu said. But the first person he saw was me. Feng Lianyi laughed. Huang Beiyu frowned slightly and said in a bit competitive tone, but he is closer to me. The baby pure gold spirit tiger raised his head and rubbed against the hand of Huang Beiyu joyfully. Then he turned to Feng Lianyi and whined fawningly. He looked really happy. Feng Lianyi said with a smile, maybe he thinks we're his parents. The baby pure gold spirit tiger seemed to understand what they said and immediately purred to agree. Huang Beiyue's face went black. She said coldly, Nonsense. This is my mythological beast, and it has nothing to do with you. Then she strode ahead with the pure gold spirit tiger in arms. She secretly decided to keep the pure gold spirit tiger away from Feng Lianyi in the future. Feng Lianyi was the first person he saw. More or less, he would have some nestling complex towards Feng Lianyi. Then she strode ahead with the pure gold spirit tiger in arms. She secretly decided to keep the pure gold spirit tiger away from Feng Lianyi in the future. Feng Lianyi was the first person he saw. More or less, he would have some nestling complex towards Feng Lianyi. But as long as they were separated in the future, the baby beast would gradually forget him. Feng Lianyi looked at her back and smiled for a while before he followed up. Along the way, Huang Beiyu was teaching the pure gold spirit tiger how to hide his breath of a mythological beast. He could understand human language and was smart. Therefore, it didn't take too much time to learn that. He slowly hid the breath and pretended to be an ordinary tiger. The moonlight sprinkled through the dense branches and leaves in the falling moon valley, quietly shining on the row of tents by the river. The campsite of Lingyang College was still peaceful at the moment. The moon hung in the sky. Students and teachers were asleep. Only the patrol teams were on guard. The fire in the brazier was beeping. The flame jumped and fell, flickering on the faces of the patrols. At this time, no one noticed that several black figures were quietly floating up from the river. They didn't make any noise. The Budo masters in the front rushed up quickly and knocked the several patrolling students nearby to the ground like waterfowls catching fish. Then they beat them to unconsciousness. Squeak, they imitated the birds' chirps perfectly. After a few calls, several people came up from the river. Countless black figures secretly sneaked into the camp from the weakest guarded side. Huang Beiyu and Feng Lianyi stood at a high place. So they saw everything that happened in the camp clearly under the moonlight. They did come. Huang Beiyu snorted coldly. Feng Lianyi said with a smile, Elder Nangong had expected it, and had already made preparations secretly. There would be no accidents for students. No accidents for Princess Ingye either. Don't worry. These people are so arrogant that they dared to speak rudely in the daytime. Now it's time to teach them a lesson. Huang Beiyu licked the corner of her lips, showing a bloodthirsty smile. When Feng Lian saw her like this, he knew that the girl had an idea. He smiled and asked, "What are you going to do?" The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the Oriole behind. With that, Huang Beiyu turned around with the baby pure gold spirit tiger in arms, and quickly entered the forest. From another direction, she sneaked into the camp of the Four Seas mercenary group, which was out almost in full force at the moment. These bandits, although in the name of mercenary group, were more active than anyone when there were evil things or when robbing. No one was willing to stay and watch the camp, for fear that they would not rob good things if they didn't go. It was just what she wanted. Huang Beiyu sneaked in easily. She just came here once. With her cautious character, she had already been familiar with everything here. She walked slowly along several tents. As she walked, she poured some plant powder on the ground. Until she walked around the whole camp and almost poured out all the powder, Huang Beiyu smiled and clapped her hands. Feng Lian slightly smelled in the air. Suddenly he smiled and said, "This is the peacock grass. It's not any peacock grass. It's male peacock grass." Huang Beiyu said with a smile. Peacock grass was a special herb recorded in Scroll of Refined Medicines. It could be divided into female and male. Although belonging to the same kind, male peacock grass could stop bleeding, generate muscle, and treat many sudden diseases. It was an essential herb for refining primary elixirs. However, the female peacock grass was totally different. When it bloomed, the fragrance it sent out would make the spiritual beasts crazy and rush in, which was a bit similar to the aphrodisiac for spiritual beasts. Female and male peacock grasses were difficult to tell apart because they looked exactly the same from appearance. Therefore, many black-hearted businessmen would sell the female peacock grass as the male one to laymen. The first time when Huang Beiyu asked Dong Ling to buy the herbs for refining myogenic pill, she bought many female peacock grasses for not familiar with the herbs and lost a lot of money, which made Huang Beiyu feel pitiful and regretful. Luckily, this time, the female peacock grass would come into use. In a moment, the people of the Four Seas mercenary group would come back without anything in hand, while something was waiting for them. TSK. It must be very interesting. Feng Lian looked at her smug expression and shook his head. It was a little scary to offend this girl. Let's go. After doing the bad things, Huang Beiyu had no intention of staying. She was about to leave quietly. "Who are you?" At this moment, someone suddenly shouted. Huang Beiyu was startled. She looked back and saw a young white man coming out from a humble tent in the dark. She knew this person. When she just arrived here, she heard that he was quarreling with Boss Yuan. His name seemed to be Luo Chun. He had a little conscience for advising Boss Yuan not to fight against the students of Lingyang College. As a result, he was scolded and humiliated by Boss Yuan. Through the flashing flame, Luo Chun saw the man and the woman. The man in pure white clothes with monstrous purple eyes that looked exceedingly stunning. The woman looked a little younger, but also delicate and beautiful. She must be a beauty which would overthrow states and cities when she grew up. He couldn't help but wonder who they were. He had never seen these two people. Were they secretly kidnapped from the opposite Lingyang College by Boss Yuan? Just now, he heard that Hualaoliu tied up a female student and took her to some place. He was so sad. Humiliating a pure student. What's the difference between these bastards and bandits? Thinking that these two people were also kidnapped students, Luo Chun's expression was a little softer. He looked around and found nobody else, so he said, "Are you kidnapped by them? Don't be afraid. They're not here now. I'll let you go. But you can't go from the front, or they'll come back and run into you later." Huang Beiyu and Feng Lian were stunned at the same time. Then they understood that the white man was kind-hearted and thought that they were kidnapped students. So why not take this mistake and make the best of it? Let him take them out and save this poor man, so as not to leave him here and be eaten by the spiritual beast. Thank you very much for that. Huang Beiyu followed his words and thanked him. Feng Lianyi also nodded slightly. It's nothing. Luo Chun smiled kindly. He turned around and led them out of the camp from another direction. He added, all men among the 4 seas should be brothers. This is the mission of our 4 seas mercenary group. Hearing this, Huang Beiyu couldn't help but feel funny. How could such a bandit-like mercenary group be matched with all men among the 4 seas should be brothers? Luo Chun walked in front of them and looked back at them sheepishly, saying, in fact, the real 4 seas mercenary group is not like this. The people led by Boss Yuan were originally a group of desperados. After the 4 seas mercenary group's accident, they all followed Boss Yuan to make a living. What happened to your 4 seas mercenary group? Asked Huang Beiyu intentionally. Just now outside the tent, she heard that Luo Chun and Boss Yuan were arguing. It seemed that something happened to the head of the 4 seas mercenary group, which led to the split of the whole mercenary group. Luo Chun, who was walking in front of them, paused a little and said in a slightly astringent voice, my uncle, Luo Ju, is the head of the 4 seas mercenary group. A month ago, he met Hong Lian from Guangyaro Hall and was seriously injured. He has not recovered so far. I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to be respected in Dongli country in the future. When it came to his uncle, Luo Chun became completely depressed. He was raised by his uncle since childhood. Now his uncle was in trouble, but he couldn't help at all. All he could blame was his weakness. If he had more talent, he would not have watched the 4 seas mercenary group be torn and fragmented. Hearing Guangyaro Hall, Huang Beiyu and Feng Lianyi both became slightly heavy. What was Guangyaro Hall going to do this time? They sent people out frequently to deal with masters from all countries. It seemed that they were looking for something. A few days ago, Sima Guiyang, the invincible general of Nanyi country, was killed, which shocked the emperor. Sima Guiyan's death meant that there were few people in the whole Nanyi country could fight against the mysterious Hong Lian. Although the emperor tried his best to conceal the death of Sima Guiyang, still the news was leaked out among the folk, making the public panic. Why were they dealing with your uncle? Asked Feng Lianyi. Luo Chun shook his head and answered, my uncle didn't tell me, but I'm afraid it's a big secret. Huang Beiyu relieved secretly. Fortunately, Luo Ju didn't tell him. But anyway, Luo Ju should not know what beast without boundaries was. They had been far away from the camp of the 4 seas mercenary group. So Luo Chun stopped and said, you can leave from here. Don't go back to your camp for a while. We see. Thank you. Huang Beiyu raised her face and smiled. She smiled so brilliant that made Luo Chun feel dizzy. Before he could realize, he felt a sharp pain on the back neck and all went black. There is a cave in front. Let's drag him in, lest the spiritual beast come and eat him later. Huang Beiyu and Feng Lianyi carried Luo Chun tandemly into the cave and added a layer of vitality restraint before they left. In the camp of Lingyang College, the lights were all on at the moment. Elder Nangong and several teachers came out and stood in the open space, looking at the other side of the river with dignity. The students also came out together and shouted to the other side, despicable and shameless. You are not the so-called number 1 mercenary group of Dongli country. I've known for a long time that they have bad intentions. These guys are really bandits and hooligans. Damn. I hope Elder Nangong can teach them a good lesson. How dare they act recklessly on the land of our Nanyi country? Do they really think nobody can fight against them in our Nanyi country? The incessant swearing went all the way to the other side of the river along the night wind. In the tent opposite, Boss Yuan limped back to the tent with several wounded men. Damn it. They didn't expect a team of students could be so strong. What they didn't know was that the annual experience outside the floating forest was one of the biggest things for Lingyang College. Every year, there would be powerful teachers escorting, and an elder protecting the students all the way. How could they be robbed so easily by a group of bandits? That would be a huge disgrace to Lingyang College. Elder Nangong raised his hand majestically and asked, are all the students here? Princess Ingye walked up to Yuan Di's side and said, Elder, Princess Beiyu and Prince Yi are not here. What? Elder Nangong was a little surprised. The wind attribute of Feng Lian was not strong enough for attacking. If he was caught by the Four Seas mercenary group, it would be a bit troublesome. Besides, there was Princess Beiyu. Everyone knows that Princess Beiyu is favored by the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. If she was also caught by the mercenary group, they would be in big trouble. What a difficult situation. At this moment, Xiao Zhongqi also hurried up and said, "Elder, my sister Xiao Yun is not here either." Although he was not close to Xiao Yun since childhood, they were brother and sister connected by blood. What's more, now concubine Qin and concubine Shui both had accidents. Naturally, he and Xiao Yun should be more unified. Otherwise, how could they fight against the smart girl Huang Beiyu? "Elder, I think it's the people of the Four Seas mercenary group who sneaked in and took them away," Academician Guo said in a gruff voice. Huang Beiyu was his favorite student now. He didn't want anything to go wrong with her. "Elder, Xiao Yun said that she was to take a walk." "Maybe she hasn't come back yet," said a female student who lived in the same tent with Xiao Yun. Other students also nodded their heads. Xiao Yun is a summoner. If she runs into people from the Four Seas mercenary group, even if she can't beat them, she will make sure to let us know with a sign, someone said. "Haven't I told you not to allow anyone to leave the camp without permission?" Academician Lei shouted angrily, which frightened Xiao Zhongqi into shrinking his neck. Elder Nangong pressed his hand and said, "Calm down. I'll take them back from the mercenary group." With that, Elder Nangong strode to the river. "Elder." The clear and gentle voice of Feng Lian came from behind, blowing away their anger and anxiousness like a gust of spring wind. "Brother Yi. Beiyu." Princess Ingye turned back and saw them. She happily ran up to them and asked, "Where have you been? We were worried about you." Huang Beiyu held the little pure gold spirit tiger silently. Feng Lian answered with a gentle smile, "Just now, Princess Beiyu saw a little tiger running in. She went to see it out of curiosity. So I followed them in case of any danger. It was not far behind the camp." "What happened?" Princess Ingye also saw the little tiger in Huang Beiyu's arm. Her eyes brightened and said, "Wow, he's so lovely." Saying so, Princess Ingye reached her hand to touch him. But the little pure gold spirit tiger immediately roared fiercely. Obviously, he wouldn't let other people touch him. Princess Ingye was frightened. She took her hand back and said aggrievedly, "He doesn't like me. This little guy seems to have no parents and is a little afraid of human beings. He just needs some time." Feng Lian said extremely considerately and naturally. Princess Ingye blushed a little bit, nodded and said, "You are right." When they were talking, Elder Nangong had returned and walked towards them. Seeing they were not injured, he was a little relieved. "Princess Beiyu, your second sister Xiao Yun is missing. Have you seen her?" asked Elder Nangong. Huang Beiyu blinked innocently and said, "Before I left the camp, I saw second sister come out of the tent. It seemed that she went for a walk." She was telling the truth. When she went to the camp of the Four Seas mercenary group, she did see Xiao Yun come out of the tent, wandering and going to some place. At that time, Huang Beiyu was busy searching for information, so she ignored Xiao Yun. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yun ran out of the camp alone and was caught by Hualaroliu and his brothers. Who was to blame? Blame her own carelessness for not obeying the rules. So Xiao Yun had been out before people from the Four Seas mercenary group came here. Now that they went back without any advantage, I don't think Xiao Yun would be caught by them. Academician Lei touched his beard and said, "Elder, now those spiritual beasts have calmed down. Why not send someone to find Xiao Yun? Maybe she's behind the camping area." Academician Lei's analysis was very reasonable. Those mercenaries all went out to the camp and were busy grabbing things. Who had the time to go outside and catch Xiao Yun? What's more, that was a fact. Xiao Yun had been caught by Hualaroliu far before the mercenary group came here. Elder Nangong also felt it was reasonable. So he agreed to send some teachers and high-level students out to search for Xiao Yun. The rest of the people were about to leave in the moonlight and reset at the outskirts of the floating forest. The riots of the spiritual beasts had ceased. If they rush over at night, Perhaps they can capture a single spiritual beast. Hearing that they were going to leave here, Huang Beiyu was naturally the happiest. She was worried about the powder of the female peacock grass in the Four Seas mercenary group across the river just now. What if it attracts too many spiritual beasts, and what if they come over to attack them? Huang Beiyu followed the brigade and moved toward the floating forest with the little pure gold spirit tiger in her arms. When they went out the falling moon valley, they heard another huge sound like the earth was shaking. "No way. Hasn't the beast riot ceased?" shouted people in the front. "It sounds like it's coming from the falling moon valley," said someone. Hearing this, all the people hurriedly looked back. Then they saw groups of spiritual beasts swarming madly to the place where they had camped in the falling moon valley. To be more exact, they were swarming to the campsite of the Four Seas mercenary group across the river. Those tall, huge spiritual beasts directly knocked down trees in the falling moon valley, completely destroying the dense vegetation. The storm ape of Boss Yuan suddenly grew larger, standing in front of the camp with the giant body. He thumped his chest and stamped his feet, roaring fiercely. But there were also many huge crazy spiritual beasts. They flooded up like tides. All of a sudden, the storm ape stepped down. Then, there came constant screams, fluttering over the falling moon valley. Students of Lian College looked at each other at a loss, not knowing what happened. Academician Guo widened his eyes and exclaimed, "What a retribution!" Hearing his words, everyone agreed, "What a retribution! The mercenary group just wanted to rob them. But now, they are all doomed." Huang Beiyu held the little pure gold spirit tiger and touched the soft hair on his head gently. She smiled slightly and raised her head, running into the purple eyes of Feng Lianyi. During their short time eye contact, they saw the light amusement in each other's eyes. Then they moved their eyes away tacitly as if nothing had happened. Princess Ingye exclaimed, "Luckily, we have left. Otherwise we would have become the food of those spiritual beasts." "You are right," said Huang Beiyu with a smile. "Xiao Yun must be in the Four Seas mercenary group right now. She always had bad luck. This time, perhaps she could not survive." Second sis, farewell. If you become a ghost and want to seek your revenge, just come and see if you have the chance to defeat me. Elder Nangong stood on a huge stone protruding above the falling moon valley, with his long beard fluttering like a celestial on the river. There was a bloody smell in the air, which seemed to be mixed with a very special fragrance. Elder Nangong sniffed carefully. Suddenly, a sharp light flashed in his eyes, the peacock grass. What's more, it was the female peacock grass that could attract spiritual beasts and made them crazy. By now, Elder Nangong had understood that there must be someone who had sneaked into the Four Seas mercenary group and sprinkled the powder of peacock grass in their camp. That's why such a large number of spiritual beasts were attracted. Who could have come up with such a brilliant idea? It was exactly the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the Oriole behind. Play it secretly. What a wonderful idea. Although it was a bit insidious, there was no need to be moral when fighting against people of the Four Seas mercenary group. After all, they were just taking an eye for an eye. Elder Nangong's eyes swept around the group of students and finally settled on Huang Beiyu, who was quietly following the crowd with the little tiger in her arms. The moonlight was quietly shining on this 12-year-old girl. The light halo around made her as clear and bright as the moonlight. This was the Princess Beiyu from the mansion of the eldest princess. It had always been said that she was rubbish. But on the battle arena of Lian College, she defeated and killed Shuemeng, which made her famous and won her the respect of many students. Later, in the skill contest of Lian College, she continuously defeated Lin Wani and Lin Zicheng, which was impossible if she only relied on good luck. But no one could be sure if she was really powerful. After all, she had been living for 12 years in the name of a rubbish. Moreover, she had never taken the entrance test of Lian College, so it was a mystery hard to solve about her real power. Did she do it this time? Although they didn't get along, Elder Nangong felt vaguely that there was some unspeakable aura of intelligence of this 12-year-old girl. Elder, the Four Seas mercenary group was completely annihilated. Now we have no worries to train outside the floating forest securely. Several teachers went to the side of Elder Nangong and said, "We are really lucky this time. Those crazy beasts came just after we left. Haha, they deserve their bad luck. God is blessing our Nanyi country, said the teachers. They all laughed happily. Only Elder Nangong stroked his long beard and smiled. He said, yes, we are lucky. Let's go. We need to start. Then, the training team of Lingyang College started to move towards their established destination. For many students, this was the first time that they had ever stepped into the dangerous floating forest in legend. Therefore, many students, though they were tired and sleepy, became energetic and looked around curiously. Those floating lights, the mystery in darkness, and the roars of spiritual beasts from afar. Teachers had warned them not to use vitality. No one dared to dice with death. They all suppressed the vitality and walked carefully. After entering the floating forest, Elder Nangong found a relatively safe place based on his experience for them to camp and rest. I'm so sleepy. As soon as they stopped, many students began to yawn and complain. Even Huang Beiyu felt her eyes sour and her mind drowsy. Not long after they began to set up the tents, Princess Ingye leaned on her shoulder and said wearily, I'm so sleepy, Beiyu. I'll sleep for a while. Her voice became weaker and weaker. At last, she fell asleep with her head askew. Huang Beiyu couldn't support herself either. It seemed that every cell in her body was shouting about how tired and how sleepy they were. They wanted to rest. Her brain was not clear. Huang Beiyu looked around and found that the 100-odd students and teachers were all sitting lazily, either dozing off or sleeping. Only Elder Nangong and several teachers were resisting against the sleepiness. Huang Beiyu squinted, becoming alert in mind. Something was wrong. How could everyone be so sleepy? It was unreasonable. Due to the strong consciousness of human beings, people hardly felt sleepy when they were excited. This was the first time for these students to have been into the floating forest. They should definitely feel fresh and curious. In a strange place, people's subconscious would explore everything in the outside world. So it was unreasonable that everyone was sleeping unsuspectingly. No, there was something wrong. Huang Beiyu struggled to sit up, but suddenly she felt some broken pictures flash in front of her eyes. It was a picture of her childhood about the day when she had a happy picnic on the hillside with her parents. The little Huang Beiyu was in a bow skirt and was looking at a black snake in the grass. The snake was also looking up at her curiously. She was not afraid at all. She reached her chubby little hand and picked up the snake on her arm. Then she went back to her parents and said with the expectation of being praised, "See, snake." Her mother screamed out of fright. Her father quickly seized the tender spot of the snake, picked it up and threw it away. Little Huang Beiyu said angrily, "It will get hurt. Darling, it's a snake. It will bite you. Never touch it in the future," said her frightened mother with Huang Beiyu in arms. It won't bite me." Little Huang Beiyu pouted. At this point, a man in white long-wind suit, with black silk-like hair hanging over the shoulders, came from a side. He picked up the black snake and turned his head to look at them with his narrow eyes. He looked so noble and arrogant that almost made people want to worship him. He put the snake in his hand and touched its head with his fingers. Then he snorted coldly and said, "Disaster is on its way. Shouldn't we respect the living beings?" You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.